Known today as a philanthropist, social entrepreneur, and business magnate, Henry Ford is one of the most dominant American personalities. He altered American life by being the inventor of the assembly line and selling millions of affordable cars to Americans through his company. He is best known for contributing to America's economy during some of the nation's toughest economic times. But what many people don't know is that he actually failed many times until he finally achieved success. He was one of 6 children, living on a farm, and spent most of his early days in a one-room school while doing farm tasks at home. At the age of 16, he left home and literally walked to Detroit on foot so he could work as a mechanic, which was something he loved to do. At 19, he returned home to the family farm. But he made it clear to his family he had no desire to take over the family farm, as his passions lay elsewhere. And so his career began, taking him on a journey that would change and launch the automobile industry. But his journey had many pitfalls, failures, and setbacks to overcome. But it was his visit to a Chicago slaughterhouse that would transform American life, the production of goods and services and industries around the world forever. So how did he progress from being a farm worker, a mechanic, and facing countless failures to becoming one of the world's greatest industrialists in history? What was the secret to his success? Hi, and welcome to our channel, where we look at famous figures and entrepreneurs and peel back the curtain of their achievements so we can learn the secrets of their success. If you like what you see, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring videos about the lives, successes, and lessons learned from some of the most famous business figures of our time. In this video, we'll be taking inspiration from the great Henry Ford so that we can all learn from his success. So let's jump in. Apparently, Henry should have been a farmer. Henry was born in a small town in Michigan, back when farming was tough and manual. This was the reason he disliked it so much. But unlike most people at the time, he was fortunate enough to be able to escape the circumstances into which he was born. Because of the steam engine, the city of Detroit, which was only a few miles away from his home, was rapidly becoming an industrial hub. Henry was surrounded by technology early in his youth, something that few children his age could experience. His enthusiasm for mechanical things turned into an obsession when he saw the working steam engine in action while on a school trip to Detroit. By the time Henry was a teenager, the steam engine was moving forward into the agricultural community, and Henry was learning how they worked and how to repair them. He took a significant step ahead when he left his town at the age of 16, against his father's wishes, and literally walked on foot to Detroit, where a young mechanic could find a job. Later in that year of 1889, Henry Ford got the opportunity for the first time to work on a gas engine, and this would change the course of history. Henry was captivated with the gas engine, but he didn't really understand it, as he had a lot of experience with metal and steam engines, but almost no experience with the gas engine that was operated by an electric spark. So to learn more, he decided to work for the Edison Illuminating Company, which was producing power for over 1,000 households in Detroit, and it did this with steam engines. This decision benefited him later as Henry built his first operational gas engine in 1893, after he had been selected as Edison's chief engineer. His mind had envisioned the horseless carriage, so it became his obsession to build a horseless carriage by utilizing a gas engine. This obsession, however, would take years of effort and turmoil before his dream was eventually realized, and in ways the world could not have imagined. It wasn't simple to build a car in a world without auto parts. Henry had to gain knowledge about every part by using the trial and error method. It took him 3 years of persistent and tireless work to create the quadricycle, a rudimentary beginning of an automobile having 4 bicycle wheels placed on it that he sold for over $200 each. Using this money, he could finance more projects. Ultimately, he decided to start his own business in 1899, the Detroit Automobile Company. He was so obsessed and passionate about his goal that he was able to attract investors that invested $150,000 into his idea. With this money he received, he rented a factory and decided to employ 100 people to build this new automobile. But mass-producing this complicated machinery was far more difficult than Henry had anticipated. The great majority of the parts needed in the car's construction were manufactured by many firms, and even if one delivery was late, the entire factory would be forced to shut down. Under tremendous stress and pressure to make the company profitable, he persisted. But setback after setback plagued the company. His investors became restless. But he pushed ahead, and 6 months later he finally built the first working vehicle. Unfortunately, he was only able to build 20 in the initial 2 years of the company's existence. The shareholders decided that this was not acceptable. So near the end of 1902, The shareholders decided to remove Henry from his position. Henry was bound to comply at this point since he owned very little of the company. This is where many entrepreneurs would have given up on their dream, but not Henry. Rather than viewing this as a complete failure, he saw it as an indication that improvement was needed and that he could eventually figure it. He believed in himself. Henry was committed to finding a way to make a vehicle that the common person could utilize. All vehicles were high-ticket items. They were mainly handcrafted one at a time by expert craftsmen. With very little money, he was able to again attract new investors with his passion and vision for the future of the automobile industry, and a new venture was born. His vision was to change the automobile from a status symbol to a commodity, but he knew it would be difficult, and it took him 20 design iterations before he found one that worked. His belief in himself and his obsession with finding an answer kept propelling him forward. Henry named his initial creation the Model A. When Henry's previous company collapsed, he understood the value of having a stable supply chain, which is why he sought to purchase as many parts from the same manufacturer as possible this time. A machine firm in Detroit named Dodge Brothers. Yes, the company that later grew into the famous American brand is the one he picked. But sometimes life-changing moments come from the most unassuming circumstances. Henry's fortuitous visit to a Chicago slaughterhouse became the game changer that propelled the Industrial Revolution. He noticed something intriguing there, a sort of disassembly line, where many people would process carcasses as they moved down the line. Henry reasoned that he might apply the same method, but in the opposite direction, and so the idea of the assembly line was born. By 1905, the Ford company employed around 300 people and produced 25 vehicles each day. But Henry still had not figured everything out. In 1906, he introduced the inexpensive Model N. That became the best-selling car in the US, and Ford became the country's largest automobile manufacturer. Henry initially utilized the assembly line procedure to at least somehow assemble a few of his automobiles during the creation of this model. Even though it wasn't a fully fledged assembly line yet, the experiment enhanced production by a factor of 5 in the same facility. But growth requires ingenuity and resourcefulness, and Henry was not satisfied, so he kept innovating. And 1907 proved to be an historic year. This was the year that Henry built his first factory that made vanadium steel. It was not easy making vanadium, but the difficulties in manufacturing it was worth it because vanadium steel was more than twice as strong as normal steel while being lighter at the same time. Joseph and James Flannery, who owned the only vanadium mine in Peru, supplied vanadium steel to the US government for the Panama Canal. So when they met Henry in 1906, they offered to assist him in shifting his entire production process to vanadium steel. After that, their chief engineer designed and built Henry's first facility in 1907, and their firm provided Ford all of the vanadium it required. The Model T was the first Ford automobile to use vanadium steel, and it was this alloy that drove it to popularity. The Model T's superior quality was all Henry needed for marketing, and within weeks of its introduction, Ford had received 25,000 orders, despite only producing 17,000 vehicles for the whole year of 1909. Thanks to the success of the Model T, he constructed another larger plant in 1910, and from there he perfected the moving assembly line in 1913. Productivity doubled every year during this time, and in 1910 he produced around 20,000 Model Ts. And after 6 years, he was making over 500,000. Yes, 500,000 per year. Simultaneously, Henry used another great strategy. He kept lowering the price of his automobile in order to expand his market share. During these 6 years, he reduced the price of the Model T by more than half. By 1918, Model Ts accounted for half of all automobiles sold in the United States. Henry opened a new era in American history, the age of the automobile, which his company would completely dominate for the next 2 decades. The rest of the car industry didn't catch up to Henry until the late 1920s, but by then he was already one of the wealthiest men alive. Today, Henry Ford is a model for entrepreneurs. His story is taught in business schools, and his achievements have changed the world. The Ford brand and legacy have become among the most recognizable globally, and his impact is still being felt across industries. So what did you learn from Henry Ford's success? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep moving forward, find blessings in new obstacles, as you never know what inspiration you might find. And for more inspiring stories, click on the links above.